All right, we have people joining us. Welcome, welcome. That's my best impersonation of John Oliver. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
How have things been? Busy and here.
Yeah. As always, everybody's busy. So, but yeah, the first of the year always is a little bit of a you're running, I guess. And now we're into legislative time, and so let's.
Are you okay? And we're into the last month of the first quarter already.
Yeah, that's unreal.
Kendall, was a reminder email sent out with the link or with the meeting notice for folks to be reminded that the meeting was coming up, in 30 minutes, anything like that? Typically, that's what we see.
I believe there was an email sent.
I know that really helps me out a lot when I have the webinars. I get that nice reminder about 30 minutes beforehand. I'm like, oh, that's right, the webinar is coming up, and helps to block it. Well, I've got 2 after. We'll give it till 3 after, and hopefully we'll get folks joining in. And of course, just like all the webinars in this series, we're going to record the webinar, and we will have them made available to us as a result. So. All right, Kevin, I got 3 after. Why don't we go?
3 minutes after, let's do it. That's the magic hour. Welcome everybody for joining us. Thanks for joining us here this morning for the first session in a series on employee engagement. And we're calling this kickoff, Putting Employee Back in Employee Engagement. And hopefully we'll share why we're going to call it that. So welcome. This is the first session today, March 10th. So there we are. There's a great series of webinars that are coming up, Putting Employee Back. The next one will be next month, the second of every month coming up. All right, thanks. And we'll be following that up with a way to unpack what we call the 8 factors of engagement. So now that I've mentioned engagement several times, we thought we'd begin with a poll. I hopefully a quick little fun poll. So how engaged do you feel right now? Do you feel totally engaged, kind of engaged? Are you sitting on the fence, or not really much engaged at all? So go ahead and give us your engagement. I'm going to select totally engaged.
Are you able to select? I was trying to do it myself. I just got the results.
That's the fun of being a host, Robert.
Okay.
All right, Robert, can you display that?
Let's take a look here.
Look, we got folks in the totally engaged and kind of engaged category. That's fantastic. Nobody on the fence and nobody not really much engaged. So that is actually very encouraging. So we're going to talk about how to move those of you in that second category up to the first. So what do we mean by employee engagement? Just real quickly before I'm going to hand it off to Robert, and he's going to go a little bit deeper into this. So we think about employee engagement that it measures the extent of an employee's connection to an organization, purpose, and goals, right? And the most engaged employees are very loyal to the organization. They feel a strong sense of belonging and motivation to contribute to success. It's tied to culture, also team. There's many, many layers that we'll get into here this morning before we give you a chance to actually take a little bit of a survey to see where you are engaged.
Excellent.
So Robert, if you move to the Next one. Yep. So our purpose today is to talk about what is employee engagement. We're going to talk about why it's so important. How can employees actually take command of their own engagement with purpose? We're going to talk about a tool that we call the 8 factors of engagement, and then talk about what's next. So this is a really good place. I think I could pass it to Robert, and he can tell us a little bit more about these 5 bullets. Robert, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Kevin. And again, welcome everyone. Good morning. When I look at engagement, one of the things that has stood out over the last couple of years, and then even prior to that, is looking at this concept of purpose. As we've gone through significant change, all of the things that are going on in life within our environment, when you listen to a gentleman, and some of you have, I know, listened to a gentleman by the name of Richard Leiter. He has written some wonderful books on the concept of purpose, has done research over the decades, and he'll even make the comment that if you go into the doctor and you need a prescription for kind of that increase of engagement or just in life and really being connected, the best thing that they could give you is a greater sense of purpose. And so to ask that question around purpose, what is your purpose, really helps. And what we have found in our research as we looked at the work that we've done around engagement is that purpose drives the overall model of engagement more than anything else, so long as there's a level of trust present. And so I start with this question around purpose because it's what drives the individual engagement model that we work with around leading from the helm. So if purpose is the #1 driver and the leading from the helm model helps us to understand what our purpose is, it's important for each and every one of us to go around it. So this whole concept of putting the employee back in employee engagement is really understanding what our own individual purpose is and how it aligns to that of the organization and everything that we do. So going deeper within one's self-awareness, having a true understanding of one's values. Who's your crew? Who do you trust? Who do you go to when you need things to get done or when you need somebody to talk with, right? Having a deep understanding of your passions, the things you love to do, your talent, the things that you've been given from a talent standpoint, the things that you've been developed into, but you're good at, you want to be able to use those talents forward, right? The opportunity to serve others on a daily basis in alignment to the things that you do well and the things that you love to do. You combine those 3 things together. We call it the TOPS model. Talent, opportunity, and passion. When you bring those 3 things together, you find your sweet spot. That brings you levels of engagement unlike you've ever had. And then ultimately, we all want to make an impact. And interestingly enough, a majority of the things that we do, we don't even know the impact that it has on others, but there is an impact. Everything we do does have an impact. Ultimately, this all brings us back to this concept of purpose. And so right off the bat, that's the key. So we're giving it to you here right on the front end. What is a way for an employee to take command with purpose of their own engagement and to put the employee back in employee engagement is working through this leading from the helm individual model. A couple years ago, right at the beginning of COVID, we decided to come out with a book that would then help support this. So the Grab the Helm book, the program that goes along with it, there's an audio book, there's the book version of it. Wonderful way to just kind of go to the core of who we are and what helps to drive our individual engagement better than anything else. Interesting, we work with a lot of students. We do a lot of work with high schools, and a few of the students asked us, well, can you write a shorter version for us as students? And so we did the same thing. We created Chart the Course, a student's guide, and it's a great 2-hour listen if you want audiobook, and it's a quick read. Interesting, everybody's a student, and I'm finding a lot of adults asking for this book as a great starting point. So again, to get to that core of purpose, it's a great place to start and charting your course and using that individual helm as the basis for it. And I know there's some folks that are part of organizations here on the call today that are even gone through the Grab the Helm program that is part of leading from the helm. So from an organizational perspective, why is employee engagement important? Well, for years, I've worked with a concept called the balanced scorecard. And this is a real simplistic version of that model. And what it says is that highly engaged employees, when they're working together in alignment with a shared purpose, as we were talking about, do amazing things on the work processes, the work that's there, the services that they provide, the innovation, the creativity that comes up. All that in alignment with the customer, in delighting the customer, in allowing the customer's needs to be met as a result of their voice and what it is that they're asking for. And that all brings us to that level of results, in raising the bar and providing the results that the organization is looking for. And this could be a for-profit, this could be a nonprofit, it could be a government entity in helping to serve the community. So again, the need for high levels of engagement. So this concept in the mid-90s was a bit foreign, and it was all about the bottom and top line and what we were doing to grow revenue and things of that nature. But more and more, even Wall Street understands the need for talent development and the high levels of engagement within organizations for this to be a sustainable model. So I'm going to show you another version of leading from the helm, but it's going to be a little different this time. See if you can see the difference here. This one is the organizational version as opposed to the individual one that we showed before. The individual had purpose as the true north, and it still is true for the organizational helm, but the organizational helm has the mission, the vision, and those strategic imperatives that help to drive the organization in the direction and steer it in the direction that it needs to be in, okay? So this organizational helm then has employee engagement at the foundation, all right? It's a foundational factor. And if you look to the left side, that is that balanced scorecard. High levels of engagement, drive work processes, which delights the customer, which provides the results that we're looking for. So my passion over the last 30 years in working with my crew and working with the organizations I've been with is really understanding what drives employee engagement. So we know, as we already mentioned, a solid true north, having a clear understanding of purpose, vision, mission, and strategy, that's that alignment piece. You need that. Then you need leadership in the organization that is consistent with what they say and what they do in alignment with the strategy and in the culture. Now, I do want to pause here and let you know, each and every one of us within any organization we're a part of are leaders. We all have the ability to impact that purposeful culture of trust by being consistent with what we say and what we do. Okay, so that alignment then between strategy and culture is so important. When you have a high degree of trust within your cultures, teams and team members work highly effective with one another. They trust each other to get things done. And when teams are, and there's a sense of belonging and care, that's when the individual engagement really takes off. Gallup will say people will join great companies, but they leave bad managers. There's truth to that. But even with that, a purposeful culture of trust and highly effective teams and a sense of belonging drives engagement even further, and our research has done that. So to get, I've seen a few more people have joined the chat or the room here, and what I want to do is pause, and I believe Erin has set us up for another quick poll. And the question I'm asking here, I've already mentioned that the left side of the helm is that balanced scorecard. Engagement drives process, customer, results. Right now, I'm going to ask you this question. When you look at a true north strategy, clear purpose and vision, leadership, being consistent with what they say and do, culture and that purposeful culture of trust that's aligned to that mission, and then that highly effective team, and the care and the sense of belonging that we have within teams, all four of those drive employee engagement. But I'm curious, from your perspective right now, if you were to choose one of those four, what would you put the highest weight on, the greatest impact of your engagement right now? What has the greatest impact in your view? Because your perception is 100% accurate, and it's the right answer. So I'm just curious, is it your team? Is it the culture? Is it the leadership? Or is it the strategy? Which of those four has the greatest impact on your engagement? It looks like the poll is up and people are already responding.
Yeah, Robert, as they respond, I think about the last poll. Some of us said we were totally engaged. Some of us said we were kind of engaged. So which of these four do you think about when you thought about what your engagement was?
Well, the results are in with the 7 that we have in. It's pretty balanced, actually, but we do have 2 votes for the strategy, 2 votes for the leadership, 2 for the culture, and 1 for the team. I'm going to encourage anyone to unmute themselves right now. I'd like a little story behind that. And just, if anybody wants to jump in and kind of give a testimonial of why that is for them and how that particular spoke of the helm impacts their engagement. See if there's anyone that wants to contribute in a verbal way. Yes, Anne?
I would just say that they're all so incredibly interconnected, and that I voted actually for culture, but when I think about it, the leadership really sets the culture. They also set the strategy, and they also choose the team. So in that way, when I rethink it, perhaps leadership should have been my vote, but they're also incredibly profoundly connected. It's hard to separate them, but I know culture, in my experience, it was one of the biggest reasons I left the ad agency world 26 years ago and went out on my own, is because it was so brutal.
Yeah.
And cutthroat. And so I wanted to create my own culture
That's beautiful.
that was more nurturing.
That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing it. What you just brought to light is the concept of systems theory, right? This model of the helm cannot really be isolated into just one spoke, right? It's a systems effect. So every one spoke has an impact on the other 7. And I love what you did there around leadership, because we talk about the triangles that exist within each of these connections. Strategy, culture needs to be aligned, and leadership sits between that, right? The work that needs to get done by the people, right? And the engagement that sits between that. So everything has this connection. And when you see it from a systems standpoint, you understand now all that goes into engagement, and then all that engagement impacts when we get it right. Thank you for your contribution, Anne. Really appreciate that.
My
One of the things
pleasure.
that we
Thank you.
look at, go ahead. Yeah, thanks. One of the things that we then do when we look at engagement, we look at it at 3 levels. Now, when we sail, the concept of navigation needs 3 data points, right? If you have a single data point, you go around in circles. If you have 2 data points, you kind of go back and forth. But you have 3, you're able to navigate to that one location. So we look at engagement through the lens of organization, through the lens of team, and then your own individual and that interpersonal. So at the organizational level, organization is all about that goal alignment, that shared purpose, right? And the role that we play in aligning ourselves to that shared purpose. The organization also needs to provide the necessary resources. It's got to be a safe environment. And obviously the developmental opportunities that are going to be critical to the ongoing performance of ourselves and the organization itself. When we look at the team level, it's how we contribute as a team within that team, but trusting each other to get the job done and done right. Right here, this is where that sense of belonging, that sense of care really comes into play. Do we feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves? And that's why that alignment between engagement and team is so important, because when we have that, in some cases, it really doesn't even matter about leadership. As long as leadership isn't undermining trust, you know what, that team can really take charge and drive things forward from our own engagement. And then at the individual level, right? How do we see our own personal engagement with the work that we do each day? Because we've got our own personal purpose, right? This is the reason why we're on this planet. And a lot of our time is spent working, right? So we want our work to be in alignment to our overall sense of purpose. Having the opportunity to use our passions and our talent every day in alignment with our purpose within that organization, within that team is so critical. So those are just some of the definitions. And I just realized I still have the poll over there. My apologies. Didn't notice that. All right. One little last piece for me here before I start handing it off to the crew members again. Levels of engagement. Now, there's a lot of marketing. There's a lot of research out there and things of that nature defining these different levels of engagement. I just want to point out here something really important. When we measure engagement and we work with our 8 factors of engagement, this is a leading indicator, meaning it's on the front end. It's what drives engagement. There's a lot of measures and there's a lot of research out there and papers being written about the fact that engagement is becoming more and more of a lagging indicator, more of an experiential measure that then you benchmark with other organizations. And that's true, and that's fine. That's what Best Places to Work does. That's what Net Promoter Score does. They use this, what was the experience like, and how does that compare to other folks in other organizations, right? Would I recommend this as a place to work, things like that? It's a nice question to ask, but you have to ask like about 4, 8, 20 whys to get to the root cause to really understand why you would recommend this as a place to work. And so we really promote the need for no false positives or no false negatives when responding, meaning we're not trying to inflate the score. We're not trying to get it out there so our marketing leg of our organization can promote the fact that this is the best place to work. What we're looking for is an accurate score on how somebody feels at the moment on the different statements that are there. Because then what it does is it helps us know where they are actively engaged against the 8 factors and the 24 statements that makes that up, where they're cautiously engaged, like something's just a little bit off. And this is an important one, where they're not engaged, where they're getting stuck. Okay, because just like a manufacturing environment, if something's broken, we put on something called a lockout tagout, right? You tag it, you put a little string on around it, and you say, this is broken, do not use it, dangerous. You put a little floor sign up where there's a slippery spot, don't walk there, something's broken. We're trying to advocate for this. So no false positives, no false negatives. This is a true, accurate measure. And so that term, not engaged, is really important, because there's something that, again, has got me stuck, and I'm going to tag it out, and I want to have a conversation with my supervisor about it. I want to have a conversation with my team members with it, and I want to work to fix this issue so nobody else gets stuck with there too. What are some of the other terms, though, that you hear in the market? I'm curious. Type it into chat or just unmute yourself. There's one particular term, and I understand the term, and I've used the term, and I probably misused it for many years. But it's something that the other engagement organizations will use to kind of create this hyper sense of, things are broken and we need to fix it. What's another term people use other than not engaged? Anybody have an idea or have it in chat? Disconnected? It's another term, just like actively engaged. It's the inversion of that, right? It's actively disengaged. And so this concept of actively disengaged, to me, it's used all the time. Gallup, they'll say 35% of the workforce is actively disengaged. And all of a sudden I go and I'm asking myself the question, and the team was as well. It's like, well, wait a second, actively disengage is a choice to say, I want to be this way, and I'm going to act in that particular way. And it's like a mislabel. And I kind of joked a little bit when I grew up in the country back in the 70s and whatnot. If a kid wasn't wearing his baseball cap nice and proper and whatnot, people would point at him and say, this kid's a delinquent, right? And so you get this really cool kid, he's all nice and everything else like that. But, for some reason, we're labeling it worse than it is. And so to say somebody is an actively disengaged employee is really saying that they're toxic and, they're just not fitting. Now that is true for some folks, but for a lot of times we're not engaged, we're not connected on that particular factor. And I want to kind of debunk the stigma that goes along with somebody scoring something, a strongly disagree or a disagree, meaning, I'm not engaged at this particular level, because you don't want to be labeled as somebody who's actively disengaged. So just wanted to put that out there. And that's something that I'm kind of passionate about. And yeah, this little guy is definitely not a delinquent. He's just having a good time, ready to go play baseball somewhere. All right, so bringing us back to the helm, engagement is at the foundation of it. One of the things that we did back in about 2015 is we started to realize that when we're working with our leadership model, and we use a variety of 4 colors of energy leadership models, when we started looking at the leadership model, we realized that model actually had transference into the culture, into the team, and into the engagement model. So we developed the 8 factors of engagement model based on that. And Erin, Barwis, are you available to jump in and kind of lead the conversation here at this point?
Yeah, I can speak to our wonderful definitions around engagement. So there's an acknowledgement that each of us as individuals has these 4 color energies or preferences, or these behaviors that we have a tendency to display, and that it's necessary. So you've got your more extroverted and outward thinking sides with your red and your yellow. You have your more introspective and reflective sides with the blue and the green. Same with thinking about how it's logic and analytics and results orientation is at blue and red, and then more heartfelt and people oriented with your green and yellow. Now, there's research that's been done that teams will also display these same types of behaviors and have similar needs. So there are teams that also need to show willpower, and teams need to show their questioning and analysis, I don't know why I'm tripping over that word today, analysis that is necessary for them to be successful. And so thinking about organizations, you start to see the same thing. So why not engagement too? And this is where the Sicora crew has started looking at organizations from the top to the bottom, making sure that everything is holistic, to acknowledge that these 4 aspects are in everything that we do, including engagement. So the engagement model that we work with acknowledges this. So very, very similarly, in the top half of the 8 factors of engagement, you start to see things like results, purpose, accountability. Are we using our resources and analytics correctly? At the bottom, it's more about the heart and the people, and do I feel cared for by my supervisor and those around me? Do I feel like I'm recognized in the right way? By acknowledging all of these different aspects, it is a much more complete way of thinking about employee engagement than many others out there. You know, as you talk to people about engagement surveys that you may have seen or may have considered out on the marketplace, they absolutely get to this idea of, I know why I'm working. So getting to that purpose side. And do I feel like I've received development opportunities? And do I feel like people listen to my voices? And that's more in the green or trust and development place. We want to acknowledge and see the need to acknowledge things like agility. So much is changing in our world. I feel like that's my entire world right now, is just change. And so can my team, can my organization be agile to keep up with the changes going on? And if so, I, as an employee, will feel more engaged and more connected to my organization. Same way with accountability, you know, are we holding ourselves accountable, each other? Is the organization holding me accountable? Is the organization showing accountability out in the marketplace? These are areas that are sometimes ignored when we consider employee engagement. And so I really wanted to highlight this as a way to make sure that every aspect or every factor is acknowledged. So let me stop here for a moment. I would love to hear, are there any questions or thoughts around how you feel around the holisticness of the way you have heard engagement defined or how others have defined engagement? Would just love to hear either in chat or open up your mic. We've got a smaller group. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was interesting when we go back to that individual model of personality styles and the need that we all have around that entire model to have a sense of completeness, either in ourselves or within others. When we built the 8 factors model, we looked at the other engagement tools that were out there, the Gallups, the Connexes, the Glints, and we looked at all the research that had been done, and we mapped it against those 8 styles with the thought that if we are able to fill in all the blanks, we're going to have this balanced, holistic model. And the response has been amazing. And that, and the fact that we're looking at it at the individual, team, and organizational level, and we're looking at leading indicators, has lent itself to that. And to Erin's point, agility wasn't even present in any of the models. We literally had to build that one from scratch because that space within the model was just void. And it just made perfect sense that agility would fit there. Any thoughts, reactions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is where putting the employee back in engagement really starts to come into play. Because as an employee, how are you seeing your personal engagement lining up with each of these areas? So are you feeling recognized in the right way for you? Are you recognizing your coworkers in ways that make sense for what's going on and who they are as individuals? So instead of looking at engagement as a top-down approach where the leaders of an organization are adjusting and making changes, it's more about, what can I do as an employee? What can my team accomplish to make sure that we care for one another in these crazy times that we're currently living in? Or how can I continue to build trust between my partner in this other department so that we both feel more engaged in our work and in our organization? This is how the whole root of it comes back to, it's not a top down, it's a both and, it's a bottom up and a top down for keeping that employee in it.
Thank you, Erin. You're going to experience again everyone. We're going to put the link in the chat here in just a second regarding the engagement survey. Oh, we got a question. How does the graphic relate to the Helm graphic? Great question. If I go back to the Helm graphic, so again, using the premise that these 4 colors and these 8 particular styles, if you want to call it that, each of these spokes has a 4-color, 8-element model associated with. So the leadership model has the 4 colors and it has 8 elements of leadership. And then when we look at culture, it's the styles of culture, and it has again, it has 8 polarities that shows up, and it's a perfectly mapped model. Team, same thing. It has the 8 aspects of team. So we've used this 4-color, 8-style approach to create balance all the way around the Helm, and that's true then for engagement. So if you were to double click on any of these, you know, quite literally, if you were to go to the website and go under Leading from the Helm, each of these 8 spokes are listed. And if you click on them, there is a 4-color, 8-style model that will appear in going from that. Very good. Thank you. Super. And so that's what we have there within the model. I just wanted to offer up, you know, the quick definition of each of these. When you look at purpose, we think in terms of passion. We think of terms of alignment of passion and talent towards accomplishing a shared mission. When we think of agility, we think of resiliency, the ability to quickly and easily adapt to a new situation. Recognition, we think of acknowledging the contributions and performance in a fair and in an accurate way, in a way that people like to be recognized. Care is a sense of belonging, a genuine concern of interest for one of each other. Trust is around consistency and a belief in the reliability, the authenticity, transparency, consistency found in ourselves and others. When we think in development, we think of growth, professional and personal growth through education, mentoring, and the experiences that we have. Resources, we think of what's necessary, the materials, the people, the information to get the work done. And then with accountability, it's about expectations, setting and maintaining high quality standards of performance. Okay, so those are some general definitions. This is a circular holistic model based on those 4 colors and those 8 styles, as Erin mentioned. But the research has also proven that clearly that there's a bit of a prioritization with these, and you're going to see this when you receive your individual profile. And it's this hierarchy pyramid that says, again, purpose is foundational, along with having clear expectations. Then the necessity of having the right resources, right? And you're trusting me with those and building trust within the relationships so that deeper levels of care can occur and that we can be recognized for the great work we do, develop into the future and what is needed, and then having the agility to do so. So there is a bit of a hierarchy when we look at it. So when you're prioritizing what factors of engagement to work on, we always say make sure to start at the foundation, because if you have really high agility and development scores and really low purpose and accountability, we have what's called an inverted triangle, and you're basically developing your people to be agile to leave the organization and go elsewhere because the foundational pieces aren't present. Any questions with that? All right. What I would like to do is take some time because what's nice about, oh, the other thing I wanted to add, for the years that I've been doing employee engagement since the late 90s, we've always been told that you can only receive a report when there's 5 or more people. That's the other piece to this that is so important. And back in 2019, in 2020, we started asking ourselves, we give employees volumes of information about themselves with personality styles and EQ and just different tools and models. Why wouldn't we give them their own report? And in fact, I always have employees ask me, how come I can't get my own results? And so what we did here this last year, in the last year and a half, actually working with TTI Success Insights, was built a profile that individuals would receive. And so that you would get your own scores, you would see how your scores are relate to this particular pyramid, but also you would see how your responses to each of the statements are written in a way that honors the way that you scored it. So what I'm going to do in the chat box right now, it only takes 3 minutes to complete this survey, even if you've already done it. Even if you've already done it, what's nice about engagement is every day you could do a pulse on it to kind of say, okay, where am I at today? And because we just talked through the model, I think it's important that each and every one of us just experiences it again to kind of to go deeper, to be able to receive your individual profile. So it will actually be emailed to you directly. It'll look like that. So if you could just click on the link in the chat. We're just going to pause here for 3 to 5 minutes, whatever it takes. When you're done, just type in the chat that you're done. That way we know. Once we have everybody completed, we'll wrap things up and we'll get things set up for the next webinar, which is going to be a full debrief of the profile along with some other aspects.
So Kevin, Robert, what do we do next?
Well, I think we can begin to wrap up. Erin, thanks for passing it along.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes, and so thanks for those of you who went ahead and took that survey, and you'll get a profile as a result. And so the next destination on our journey is April 14th. That's the second Thursday in April. And what we'll do there is we'll take a deeper dive into each of your profiles. So we'll title that Understanding Your Engagement. So what do those numbers mean? What do all those results mean? And at the beginning of the next session, we want to let everybody know that for people who have not yet completed the survey, we're going to start this next session with some time so that people who have not done so can go ahead and take 3 or 4 minutes and get their own profile. So everyone will be able to go on that journey with us on the 14th at 10 a.m. Central. And then the third session, we'll begin to talk about and unpack a lot of what we talked about here today, which is what is my job as an employee? What is my role in taking command of my own engagement? I was struck by Tammy's comment there about, it's not just, and what Erin also said too, it's not just the job of leaders and managers to make their employees get engaged. We all have a responsibility in our own engagement, no matter where we sit in the hierarchy of an organization. So those are the next couple of stops on our destination as we chart our course. And I think we're ready to wrap up here. Does anyone want to share a takeaway at all from today, either in the chat or come on off mute? What are you taking away here? We've got about a minute left. Alrighty.
I liked, this is Tammy. I liked the graph on the 8 factors of engagement and then kind of how it tied into the wheel. So kind of just looking forward to learning more about that.
Great. Thanks, Tammy.
Well, feel free to reach out through the email, any one of you, if you want to have discussions. I know a month can be a long time to wait. If you're itching to hear more about certain things, feel free just to reach out to us. And if somebody hasn't experienced the 4 colors of insights in recently, we're more than happy to set you up with kind of the latest and greatest version of that, so that you can experience your own 4 colors of insights and personality style as well.
Yep, and everybody can see there's a registration link in the chat if you'd like to go ahead and register now. It's right there.
Robert, I was intrigued to hear that purpose drives engagement more than anything else. That was interesting. I didn't know that. And also, the caveat to that is if trust exists and you have that sense of belonging, and that's a huge if. And I would think that even if so many organizations have purpose, but they don't really live by it, and so that creates that lack of trust and therefore the ultimate, actively disengaged or disengagement factor.
But it's interesting too, because when you look at the model of the 8 factors, purpose and trust are perfect dichotomies, right? They fit perfectly. So they act like as battery posts in a way. And in 2019, we were asked to present at the HR Tomorrow conference at the University of Minnesota's Carlson School of Management and present our findings, because we had been doing this now for, at that point, 3 years, and had some pretty large volumes of data. And it just screamed. I mean, it truly did. When the industrial organizational psychologists were doing the statistical analysis on the data, purpose clearly drove the rest of the model more than any of the other factors. All the factors drove, had an impact on it, but purpose more than anything else. But then as soon as you drop trust to a certain level, purpose just falls apart. There wasn't anything foundationally for it to be on. So it just shows why that dichotomy is so important. People wonder why we don't have trust and purpose on the foundation of the pyramid. And well, when you're going into an organization, it takes a while to build trust anyhow, and you need that clear expectation along with purpose. It's the alignment of my work to the purpose that's foundational, and then being given the right resources, and then having the trust. So it takes a little while, and that's why we find it in that second tier. But it was interesting because there was other speakers at that conference, and it was amazing how much purpose was coming up. And then all that was a prelude to the COVID. And what we found, and this is true, the organizations I was working with, we were measuring, those that had a very strong sense of purpose when COVID happened and kicked off, because we measured engagement every quarter, their engagement scores actually hockey sticked up. They went up as a result of all that was going on, because the organization was so well aligned. And those that were just kind of not sure and didn't have clarity around it, boom, their engagement scores dropped. So it was literally to an organization that it proved that point, that those that were clear, concise with their communication, in alignment with their purpose, the team members trusted what was going on, and the engagement actually went up. I've got examples of that way back in my Carlson company days, when different teams were, unfortunately, because of the program shutting down, you'd think the engagement would shut down as well. In fact, if you were managing it right, their engagement levels actually went up, because they had this shared sense of community as they were going through it. So it's a really powerful, interesting study.
Fascinating. It reminds me of, I heard a speaker, and for the life of me, I can't think of her name, but it was a couple decades ago. It was a long while ago. And it was shortly after 9/11. And she said that she was this huge executive leadership, organizational development guru, and has written books and been around the world talking. And she talked about how some big bank organization in New York wanted to hire her to help with employee performance. And so she did some sort of assessment and inventory, and then came away and went to the management team and said, listen, your people are in a state of, absolute mental crisis, and they're so distraught because of 9/11. And we've got to address that before we can address performance. And the bank wouldn't allow her to do that. So she just quit on the spot.
Right. Yeah, and it's not Brene Brown. I know that. And I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about. And she's got the book. She's really big on employees taking accountability of their own engagement as well. And why am I drawing a blank? Erin might know. She's a little bit better read than I am, and I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the woman's name, because her model has been used, or our model has been used in conjunction with the model that she has set up around it. If we're thinking of the same people,
Sure. Yeah.
person, but it sounds like it's the right fit. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the person.
I
Erin,
feel like, I don't know if this is just my own influence. It feels like her first name was Anne, but that's my first name. So I don't know if I'm just making that up or not.
yeah. Why
Anyway.
can't Erin, can you remember?
No, I'm sorry. My head is still,
Yep.
I'm a little cloudy right now.
Yep. Well, one of our clients uses her work, and as soon as we get off the webinar, I'll remember. And so it's just the way the brain works, right? And I'll send it back out. But yeah, it's very much in alignment. Our client in Wisconsin, Erin, the healthcare system.
Yeah, that's the Cy Wakeman work.
It's Cy Wakeman. Yeah,
Oh,
so I don't know if that's the person you're thinking about, but yeah, Cy Wakeman is kind of comes out of that same space and is big on the employee ownership of engagement. So yeah.
I wonder if it was Rosabeth Moss Cantor.
Mhm.
No, that wasn't her. I know her. I mean, I know of her, but that wasn't.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, very good.
Hmm.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Again, feel free to reach out to us directly if you have any other questions, and we look forward to having you on the next webinar. Feel free to let us know if there's opportunities to use the 8 factors within any organizations that you're working with. Obviously, we'd love to help there. We've built some amazing online learning journeys that go along with it to help support that whole piece of individual and team engagement. Yeah, feel free to go to Amazon and either grab the audio book or the the online book or the hard copy of either Chart Your Course or Grab the Helm. Really kind of getting at the core of that sense of purpose. We found folks that have gone through the programs and the books have really appreciated that, gaining that deeper sense of purpose. Well, thank you again, and we'll sign off, and we'll hope to see everyone real soon.